Hey, what's going on? This is the Convo. I'm Norm along with Mike. Thanks for joining us. It is Sunday, September 11th, 2022. We inch closer to the 22-23 NHL season, talking about the one and only Toronto Maple Leafs. We went into the goalies last week in our return to action. We feel that the goalie situation is one that will change over time. We'll get into a little bit of the poll that you guys contributed to in regards to how you think that goalies should be lined up for the season to come in just a little bit. But we wanted to devote this podcast to the Leafs defensive core. Mike, we prefaced this episode last week with the thought that all should be well, at least on paper, and at least to start with this defensive group. It's pretty deep. Lots of veteran guys, lots of players with tenure and experience, plus some up and comers. But do you think that is maybe a little too idealistic when you break it down and potentially look forward to what could come? Good morning, by the way.
Good morning. I actually think that their defensive core this year is the best that it's been in recent memory.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, injuries are always a factor, and durability is always a factor, and you have starting to have some age on the blue line, counterbalanced by some young guys. But I
Right.
think the guys who are going to be top four, I mean, Morgan Riley signs the long-term deal during the season last year, has almost his career best year, 58 assists, 68 points. Now he's locked up. He's 28, just turned 28.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got Muzzin and Brody and Giordano, who are all over 30, and in the case of Giordano, closer to 40. But Giordano is more than likely going to be a bottom pairing guy on
Mm-hmm.
this team. And if they manage his minutes, he's going to be a real asset to this team in terms of a stabilizing force. But if you look at the top four, and this is where like a lot of the machinations really will be interesting. Riley is obviously, part of that top pairing. Will they go back to TJ Brody paired with Riley on the top pairing, and that pairing playing the majority of the minutes, playing 24, 25 minutes a night?
Mm-hmm.
Or will they keep Brody as they had him with Jake Muzzin in the playoffs? Because Muzzin last year, as you remember, Norm, he struggled with injury, and he also struggled with consistent partners. He
Mm-hmm.
had Liljegren for a time, didn't work. He had Rasmus Sandin for a couple games, that didn't work. He had Brody for a time at the end of the year that worked well enough that they decided that they were going to go with him in the playoffs. But they had Lyubushkin on the blue line playing with Riley,
Right.
so they don't have that right-handed guy who's a stay-at-home guy to play with Riley. Then does it fall to Justin Hall? And I think if anybody would say that, who will take a guess at what the worst pairing last year, it would have been Muzzin and Hall. They just were terrible. As opposed to 2 years ago when they were arguably their best pairing, they were terrible last year.
Right.
So,
But Jake Muzzin's a Stanley Cup winner, right? The pride of Woodstock, a veteran. You think he could be slotted in with anyone and contribute and be competitive? Do we look at the injury and say, look, we need somebody to compensate for what he can't give, or is he that sensitive a player that he only really shines if he has the right complement?
I don't think he's a sensitive player in the sense, but I think the question is durability. I mean,
Yeah.
concussions especially, and he's 33 years old. When he was healthy, later in the season when he
Right.
came back and in the playoffs, I thought he played really well.
Hmm.
But early on in the year, after he got his bell rung and he came back, he was not the same defenseman, and he struggled for a while. And early in the season, he struggled with Hall. I think it was more Hall, and it was more the combo than anything. But Hall played well later on in the year. It was just the combination didn't work.
Hmm.
So right now, the question is who will be that fourth defenseman
Hmm.
in the top four? Because Brody, Muzzin, Riley are three of your top four. I don't think it's going to be a Giordano. because I don't think they want to pile on the minutes as much. Unless they're either going to put him as a top 4 role and sit him 20 games and give him rest because he's 38 or 39 years old.
He's 39.
Or they're going to play him 82 games, but they're going to play him 14 minutes a game. I think they're going to play him on the bottom pairing and play him as many games as possible. They'll load manage him every once in a while. But who of those young defensemen, or do you go back to Justin Hall as a top 4, is going to be part of that top 4? And I like, my guess is Timothy Liljegren. I think that they had enough confidence in Liljegren last year and saw enough progress, and he's a right-hand shot, that Liljegren could be the guy with Muzzin on the second pairing, and they pair Brody with Morgan Riley.
And Liljegren's been with the organization since 2017. I mean, he was drafted in 2017, Mike. We're 5-6 years on. It is his time. And we know he's contractually obligated to play for the Maple Leafs right now. The Rasmus Sandin situation still up in the air, although you think that it will be resolved in time. We'll talk about that in a little bit. This is the Convo. I'm Norm, along with Mike. Thank you so much to all of the OGs, converts, newbies, whatever, for returning alongside us last week. It was a big success. We're going to go once a week, and then we may slot in a show here and there as we go forward towards the next Leaf season, the next incarnation of a group of players that we really love and admire and despise and loathe as it pushes towards more success, a Stanley Cup, maybe during our lifetimes. Roll call. Corey Parrish, good to see you. Masset Atkis out of the Windsor, Detroit area. We have Larry Pacolet, Tony Soprano, Jose Duarte, Michael Matthew, of course, Chris Daniels, Jeremy W. is here. We have IUCO2, Robert Bohr. Amazing. Good a group of people. We appreciate you being with us. I wanted to read a couple of things from the Leafs Convo community real quick. So I asked Mike, I asked viewers and followers of the podcast to get us started in terms of thoughts and ideas on this show that is devoted to the Leafs defensive group. Are we overhyping it? Is there potential that the whole thing could come down because we're relying on guys who are a little bit older, and then we don't know the situation with some of the newer guys? Of course, skepticism does reign. Corey Parrish, 2 things for me. 1 is get Sandin under a contract any way, shape, or form. 2, could we see more of a Giordano-Brody duo reunited in their first full season back together? Andrew, who does Sandin think he is? Let his ass sit all year. Dubas needs to stand on this one. So, on paper, it looks good. You mentioned that this is the most complete defensive group the Leafs have had in quite some time. Last week, I was feeling pretty confident about it. And that may be the case. We could be right on the money, but for the sake of conversation, how might this thing not be as good as we believe it to be?
Well, I mean, right now, like I said, I mean, the stability of the blue line in terms of experience, in terms of like young players, I think is better than it's been in a long while. Where I'm concerned about is positioning. And, I don't think that that Sheldon Keefe is as much a slave to the left-right breakdown as Mike Babcock was.
Right.
But you did see last year, Lyubushkin, a right-hand shot defenseman, a stay-at-home guy, a physical guy, playing with Morgan Riley regularly in the playoffs, and Brody, who's a left shot but has played the right most of his career, playing with Muzzin. So it pretty much broke down as a left-right situation. And then your bottom pairing was Giordano and Justin Hall. And Liljegren played a little bit in the playoffs, but didn't play. After early in the series, they went with more with experience. Like I was saying before, I think Liljegren is going to slot in as the right shot defenseman in the top 4. He showed increasing ability last year. He produced offensively. 5 goals, 18 assists. His plus minus was good. He was, he killed penalties. He was physical. I think he's going to earn the confidence, or that he has earned the confidence that he can move into a top 4 role, and he is locked up on a long-term deal. Giordano, now where the positioning situation is, I think, concerning is Justin Hall has a year left in his contract at $2 million. I don't particularly believe that any of the guys that they brought in during the summer, Victor Mete, Jordy Bent, maybe Jordy Bent as a 7th defenseman, as a guy who sits on the roster making league minimum, and he can play both sides that he spots in. But maybe they don't risk putting him on waivers. But I think they probably will, and he probably would clear. It's the fact that right now, if you sign Rasmus Sandin, he doesn't have a spot. You've got 7 defensemen, and you can only start 6. You're not going to go 11-7. So, I think that is the concern of the Sandin camp more than money. I think, based on what he has put up offensively and his, he's had some injury issues, the Leafs reportedly offered him the same deal that Liljegren was offered, which is 2 years at $1.4 million. I think that's pretty fair. That's what they offered Travis Dermott before he was traded. And so I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is that they've got Giordano, Muzzin, and Riley all playing the left side.
So does the Sandin camp? Sorry, Mike, to interrupt you. Do they just want? What do they want him to?
He wants to play.
Part that for sure, but you still need players, other players. You need depth, right? Like, are they wanting the Dubas to remove guys just to clear the way for Sandin to play all the time? Is that basically? I mean, does this not like? Does this not feel like the Sandin camp is just? I mean, and of course they're focused on their player, but is this based on what they want? Is this right for the organization? Is this right for the team? Because just reading some of the comments from OGs and converts, a lot of them are, get this guy, who cares what this guy wants? It's more about the team, and sure, he wants to play, but the team still has to have the right configuration just in case he's not playing as well as he thinks he can, right? Don't you think that this seems a little strange?
I see. I don't think it's strange in the sense that, okay, I can see it from both perspectives. From the Leafs point of view, they see the fact that Sandin has been hurt every year. So durability is a question. But when he has played, he has shown an ability. He's, good on the second power play at times. He's got good offensive instincts. Defensively, he still needs to get stronger. There are areas where his game needs to improve, just like it did with Liljegren, and Liljegren showed that improvement. But the problem is that right now, as it currently stands, he is a defenseman without a position, because you've got who of those 3 veteran lefties is going to play the right side? Is it Giordano? Is it Muzzin? It's Riley. More than likely it would be Giordano, and Giordano never really played the right side. He's played most of the left side in his career. So, okay, if you do, now that's assuming that they want to play Sandin on the left side. If you're bringing him in, you sign him to a contract, and you keep who you have right now, then he's your 7th defenseman. And you can have a 21, 22-year-old guy sitting. He needs to play. He knows it. They know it. And that's why I'm thinking more than, I think it was 800,000, not 900,000. It was 800,000 for Giordano. The Leafs recognize he's a talent. They like him. They think he's going to be a good NHLer. And they have a situation where they have a guy who his contract is up at the end of the year, and I really don't think that they're going to re-sign Justin Hall. So the move here is to sign, and I think what they're doing is they want to get Sandin signed before they move Justin Hall. They don't want to trade Justin Hall, and then all of a sudden Sandin's camp says, okay, you moved out a $2 million defenseman, so now we want $2 million. No, you're going to take the offer that we want you to take. that we think you deserve to take. And if you don't, then you're okay, hold out. But I don't think that's productive for your
Is
career.
Sandin a future Norris Trophy winner? And when I
No,
say
but
in
he's
the
a
future, in the next couple of years,
no,
so
but
he
he's a
should
great.
not be able to dictate what this organization does.
That's
He's not good enough.
well, I'm sorry. Every player dictates, and it's the question right now. He doesn't have a lot of leverage. He doesn't. There's no arbitration, and nobody offers offer sheets
Mm-hmm.
anymore. So he doesn't have a lot. The only leverage that he has right now is I'm not going to show up. And if he wants to go play for Rogel in the SHL, he can do that. But it's not furthering his NHL career. And he could have a very good NHL career. He's got a lot of talent. It's just it's not realized yet. And I don't think it's not like William Nylander, where somebody just said that in the chat. William Nylander had 3 years and then he wanted to be paid like he was a superstar. And he got paid $7 million at that time. That was not superstar money, but it was star money, and he wasn't a star. I think Sandin just wants to play. He wants to prove himself. And the concern with the Leafs is if they trade Justin Hall and then Sandin gets hurt, then your number 6 defenseman is Jordy Ben.
Right.
That's the concern. So
in this case, the depth is working against the impression, right? And that's we like the depth, we like these extra guys, but this young up and comer who wants to play feels like there's just too many guys in his way right now, and that's why there's a it's contentious between the organization and Sandin's camp. Let's hope this doesn't become a distraction. Let's hope that they can get him signed up. Let's hope he can play his part and weave his way, through the group up towards a spot where he's more integral. Seems like he's got the skill for it, but he's got to be able to, put that into practice and do it consistently. The other thing too, Mike, is you want to take care of your players. You want to make sure they feel like, and it's demonstrated, that there is a development taking place and the opportunity to ascend. On the flip side, the Leafs have to compete and contend, and they need more bodies to do that, especially guys who've been down this road before and guys you can rely on. It's interesting. We talk about this group being as complete as it's ever been, but this is kind of a lingering thing, and again, involving a player who could really be something. Then again, also a player who's not of a stature where he should be able to part the seas and get what he wants at this stage. I mean, that's just my 2 cents on it. I don't know.
But this is the thing, and Kyle Dubas has to be concerned with the here and now and with the future.
Right.
And if you look at the Leafs defense, right now, the only defenseman who is under contract after next season is Morgan Riley.
Right.
Liljegren's on a 2-year deal. Muzzin, Brody, Giordano all have this year and next year remaining. You're wanting to get Sandin locked. Now, if you get him on a bridge deal, that's fine. But and this is why, people are saying just trade him. No, you're not trading your first round pick from 2017, who's just coming into, there were people talking about trading Liljegren last year, and and I said that's dumb. And there are people talking about trading Sandin, and that's dumb. You keep your young guys around, especially when they show so much potential upside. And, in a couple of years, Jake Muzzin's probably going to be gone, and who knows about Brody, or who,
Right.
Giordano's probably going to retire. So you need these young defensemen. So
Right.
That's why I'm saying you don't move them, you sign them, and I don't think Justin Hall is going to be here long term. So if you have to move Justin Hall to make room for Rasmus Sandin, then you do that. But then your dilemma.
That's the plan anyway. And
well, you don't know. You don't know. But they're not going to implement that plan until they get Sandin under contract. And the thing is that so then okay, you have 6 defensemen with Rasmus.
Sandin isn't an NHL player according to Donnie Brasco.
Horse crap. He is an NHL.
Donnie, good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, that's crap. He is an NHL player. And now has he proved he's a stable NHL player who played 82 games? No, but he's shown the talent. Now he's just got to put it all together. But the whole situation is, if you have to trade Justin Hall to make room for Rasmus Sandin, then the question is, who's going to play the right side besides Brody and Liljegren? And one of those lefties have to move over to the right side. So we'll see.
So if someone from Sandin's camp was able to sit in at 40 Bay and they had an hour to reconfigure the defensive group and the roster in order to benefit their client, how would they do it?
Well,
to benefit him right now, to get
benefit
him
right now, he plays better on the left side. So they would say move one of the veterans over to the right side,
right,
and play Sandin. You could play Sandin with Liljegren. They were good at times last year, but then then you're having Giordano playing a top four role. And
how would they get him more playing time? What would they do to change the roster to
trade Justin Hall? That's the move.
Are they not aware that this is a potential thing, but the Leafs need to see, there are steps to get there?
As you said, they don't. I mean, they care about the future of Rasmus Sandin,
right,
and what's most beneficial to him. As for how that manifests itself with the Leafs, that's up to Kyle Dubas. And I think it's all a question of whether Kyle Dubas believes Justin Hall is a piece that plays in the top four. And I don't think that's where he belongs. And the point that somebody just made, yes, he's played 88 games. I that's what I'm saying. He has shown talent, but he hasn't put it all together. But he came up for a contract now, and they have to make a decision on him now. And I don't think they want to move him. So if they don't move him, well, he wants to play. Okay, well, maybe he can't demand that. But I think that if for him to sign, they're going to have to say to him, okay, well, you're going to play. And then if he's going to play, then, are you going to sit Giordano 40 games? No. Are you going to, I don't know if 7 defensemen as currently constructed is a manageable situation.
Right. A player has representation. They're looking out for the player. The Leafs are represented by a group of individuals who you believe are thinking of the best interest of the organization. So this is a bit of a tough one. It doesn't feel like it should get really contentious and toxic and be a huge problem, especially when it's not coming down to pure dollars and cents. It's just more about roster management and when it should be managed and when things should change to benefit the client. So, hopefully these guys can figure it all out, because Rasmus Sandin does have a future, a really good future in the NHL, especially if he can stay healthy. And I'd like to see it be with the Maple Leafs. The idea of this defensive group being tip top and one of the best in the league, top 10, maybe top 5, that idea involves Rasmus Sandin being a part of it, because he's part of the young group with Timothy Liljegren, there to augment what the top guys can or cannot do, and then start to weave their way into more pivotal roles with the veterans complementing them. But he's got to be on the team, and I feel like it would just benefit him better to wait his turn to play the role, continue to do so, stay healthy, and then move forward as the opportunity presents itself. Because it's Sandin over Hall all day, but in the initial going, you got to have the bodies, and at the end, and you've got to win games, and you've got to have the bodies to win games. Mike, it's just always amazing talking hockey with you. Your knowledge is endless, and it's awesome. I love that we share the love of and the loathing of the same hockey team. The Yankees, on the other hand, that's a bit of a cluster F, but we won't get too deep into that. Yeah, I think will they hang on? That's the
Yeah, they will.
Will they hang on? Friggin' Tampa Bay! Somebody move that damn team to.
Well, when you're playing these Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders because everybody is hurt, and Josh Donaldson and Jose Trevino are on paternity leave, it's like,
Right.
But
Tampa, I hate that. I can't stand that. It's like, move them to Montreal already. But then again, yeah. But the Zach Aston Reese.
Yeah.
So a a guy who's just gritty and there to maybe take up some minutes, a fourth line kind of guy. And let's in this moment we're like, who gives a shit? Nobody cares. But down the stretch, a guy with some tenure and who understands the game, those fourth liners are pretty important.
Well,
They'll
yeah,
get the credit they deserve, especially if he can contribute at some point.
and he played almost 5 years in Pittsburgh. Got traded at the deadline as part of a cap move to clear money for the Penguins to trade for Rickard Rakell.
Right.
He was a free agent. There was talk even back in July of the Leafs being interested in him. There was talk of course, where every Leaf player goes to die. Edmonton was interested in Zach Aston Reese, but he wanted to stay east. And he's an effective player. I talked to somebody I know in Pittsburgh, and he said, hits a lot, high motor, penalty kills, good checker. We'll pile up the hits. We'll pile up. He's not overly. He's good size, 6', 204. He's a depth forward. But the thing is, if you look at the moves that the Leafs made, as they did the previous year with replacing Zach Hyman, they didn't do it with one guy. They sort of did it in the aggregate. They added Bunting and they added Kemp and so they really recreated, using an analytical method, they really recreated Zach Hyman and actually got better results for the buck than they would have had they signed Zach Hyman for 8 years at $6 million a year.
Right.
This year, they had to replace Ilya Mikheyev, who was a third-line checker who had a career year offensively. And they've gone out and they've signed Adam Gaudette, and they've signed Nicholas Aube-Kubel, and now Aston Reese on a PTO, and Calle Jarnkrok. So I think they've improved the depth of the forwards. And their third and fourth lines, I think, will be more complete than they were. And I do think Aston Reese will be signed to a contract. And again, that comes back to they're over the cap right now, and they have to be cap compliant at the beginning of the year at $82.5 million, and they're almost $1.5 million over the cap. So how do you take care of that? Well, okay, the one thing you do is you trade a player who's got a salary, and that's Justin Hall, or as some people on social media want to advocate, Alex Kerfoot. But I'm sorry, look at the Leafs roster and look at Alex Kerfoot and where he slots in. And if you are not lying to yourself, how in God's name can you advocate trading Alex Kerfoot? Alex Kerfoot is the second line left winger with Tavares and Marner. If you trade him, you must be awful confident that Nick Robertson can fit into a scoring role, or that Calle Jarnkrok can fit. I don't think that it makes any sense. Now, later in the year, if Robertson has a good season and you think, okay, we can get away with trading Kerfoot to open up space to make other moves, then fine. But right now, the move is, short of carrying a roster of 20 players, which they've done in the past, right, I think they're going to trade Justin Hall, and I think they're going to sign Aston Reese as a depth forward, and he'll probably play fourth line duty. But he's an effective veteran player, and I think it's a good ad if they sign him.
Our season preview will continue in 1 week's time. We'll get in depth on the Maple Leafs forwards. We can talk about how Aston Reese may slot in more effectively. We can get deeper into Alex Kerfoot and what may happen with Nick Robertson. Another situation where Kerfoot could be a placeholder for Robertson, but in the initial going, you got to go with the guys who brung you. Real quick before we take off, Jordy Ben, is he on the opening night roster?
No, I think he's the first call up, but he's with the Marlies.
Okay, so Brody, Giordano, Hall, does he get traded, or does he because we think he'll start the year with the team?
I think he's either with it's a 50-50 that he gets traded or he's with the Leafs.
And the trade would be to facilitate more opportunity for Sandin, who they'd want to get on ink to paper, right?
It's Cap and it's Sandin.
Yeah. Right. So Timothy Liljegren, Jake Muzzin, Morgan Rielly. Who else am I missing? Who's
Rielly, Muzzin, Brody, Liljegren, Giordano, and Sandin with Hall as a possible seventh.
You mean Victor Mete?
No,
won't be a part of the top pairing.
He's a Marley. He's a Marley.
Wow, it's amazing though watching some of these guys and their career trajectories going from a peak down when if things had worked out differently they'd be in their prime right now. They come through the system, they play junior hockey, they play in national teams, they get drafted, they come out gangbusters. Some players can find longevity and other players they plateau real fast and they come down even faster. It's
Well,
remarkable pro
I'll
sport.
give I'll give you the rising star. Not to say that this guy could make the team out of training camp because I don't think he will. But somebody who, if he has a really good year in the American Hockey League, could be somebody that gets a look at training camp next year, and that's William Villeneuve, their draft pick, fourth
Okay.
round pick from 2020.
Okay.
He had an incredible year in the queue. He's completely turned his game around. He was like an all offense, no defense guy in the queue with St. John. And last year, his plus minus he was a minus 52 in 2019. Last year, he was a plus 60. Now I know that plus minus isn't everything, but he really revamped his game. He devoted himself to being more two way. He didn't lose a lot of his offense. He's a right hand shot. He's going to get a long look and a lot of opportunity with the Marlies. They hope that he can stay healthy, get a full year of experience, and then if he plays well, then maybe he is a realistic option next year or in 2024. But I do think that Villeneuve is somebody that they have a lot of hope for. And then Topi Niemelä, who has been the prospect that everybody looks to. And I think he's really good, and he played pretty well at the World Junior for Finland and almost scored the game winner for Finland in that gold medal game. He's playing in Finland next year, and then will more than likely come over then. And I think he needs a year or two of seasoning in the American League. So he's going to be somebody who's a few years down the road, but again, another really good prospect.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with having good players in the pipeline. You need good players now. You need good players next year. You need good players to replenish the good players who are no longer good or who leave the fold. The Leafs organization feels more stable now than it ever has before in general. So we have to give Dubas deserves a lot of credit. We got to stop kind of prefacing everything with his failures or he's just a general manager now who's doing a really good job and is trying to find a way to get his organization to the next level while doing everything else. So Tony Soprano, Ben will be in the 7, not the A. So he disagrees with you there, Mike. And then IUCO2, Ben is gonna be paired with Riley. So
No, Jordy Ben. I mean, it is possible if they do trade Hall that Ben is the number 7 because he's 750,000 and he can play both sides. They would probably have to carry only 12 forwards, but I think more if they sign Sandin and don't trade Hall, then they're barely they can only carry 20, and I don't even know how they would do it.
With Liljegren and Sandin having the capability of being, top 4, dare I say, even top 2 kind of guys, if the development is right, you need them to be there. You need them to be part of the process. You need them to be producing because the top guys now, the dudes we're relying on, are aged and Muzzin's had injury problems. You don't know if Giordano, you don't know if he could, come down like a house of cards just with taking a puck to the knee. Brody, he's in his prime, but you don't know with him. This is a situation where you need all hands on deck to be the complete package that on paper we feel it can be. But it's a one, it's a holdout, an injury, a shitty start away from being something completely different than we believe it can be. And Morgan Rielly has had a lot of fortune in his. He's been very fortunate in his career thus far. If he has a shitty season, then the way we're hyping up this group, um, we'll go for naught and we'll be eating crow. But there's a lot of things have to go right for this group to be as composed and productive and super beneficial as we believe it will be. Mike, last word to you.
Yeah, I think the key thing for this year for the defense is if you have two young guys like Sandin and Loigren, they have to play.
Right.
They have to play a lot. And with a lot of your defensemen long in the tooth, they need to take primary role. So that's why I believe they will sign Sandin, they'll trade Hall, and Sandin will be an everyday player, and Loigren will be in the top four. But as we'll see if I'm right. That will play out at the beginning of training camp, which starts on the 21st.
And hockeybuzz.com, do you have anything new up right now?
I'll have the convo up in a few minutes.
Oh, well, thank you very much for your support. Golden Stick 90, any chance Subban joins the Leafs on a PTO?
I thought that there was a good chance, but the way I'm interpreting it, and I talked to somebody, he might be holding out for a 1-year deal somewhere.
The
And
Sandin camp wouldn't like that at all, would they?
yeah, well, no, and I mean, right, it just exacerbates the problem. It just adds another. I think he's going to end up going someplace where he's a bottom pairing defenseman on a good team. And I'm not to say the Leafs are not a good team, but I think a team like Florida or Vegas
Right.
or someplace like that where he could fit in, a team that needs to improve the depth of their defense. I think he's going to end up doing that. I thought there was a chance he would come back to Toronto, but it doesn't seem
A
likely
little
now.
late for that now. It's not like the Leafs need more bodies. It's just they need to configure properly the bodies they have. Mike, episode 2 of season 5 in the books. Always good to see you. This baseball playoff race has me on pins and needles. I hope I'm feeling the same way about the Leafs after a first round win here in
Mm.
about 7 months' time, but only time will tell, and we'll work our way there. OG's Converse, thanks so much for your contribution here. Don't forget to like the video on YouTube, subscribe to the podcast. We're back with tons of content. It'll be worth your while. So for Mike, I'm Norm. We're out.